So, like, recently, my summer break just ended, and I'm starting my senior year of high school. And as I'm in the height of my life, making experiences I'll never forget, something that's been in the back of my mind is, damn, people were really hating on late 2000s cartoons. I know it's a weird thing to think about, but considering I was born in 2006, I was basically lumped between two generations. The epic early 2000s kids who wanted to be werewolves and shit, dressing in chains upon chains of chains, and end up having epic websites like this. Man, that is an aesthetic. And the new generation, who has been on their phone 24/7 and actively losing their morality as the years go by. And so during this time, I watched a lot of television, and a lot of shows I saw were shows that people back in the early 2000s scene were actively ripping on. I don't know why, shows like Fanboy and Chum Chum, Clarence, and Uncle Grandpa just got like the most brutal stink eye from everyone in a 30-yard radius. You tell someone you like Fanboy and Chum Chum, they will Mortal Kombat brutality you. You tell someone you like Teen Titans Go, you already made a mistake right there, buddy. They are going to find you. They are going to look at you as you sleep. They are going to live in your closet for days. They will begin to appear more and more in your life before you start to realize everyone that you know and love has been silently disappearing. And as the months go by and your sanity starts to decline, finally, they grab a pocket knife, give it to you, and ask you to do the deed yourself. Pretty extreme, right? Well, no. Not at all. See, back in my generation, the internet was a pretty popular thing. I don't know if you know that. But the thing is that with stuff like YouTube, there were this subsection of people who like talking about cartoons. The animation community. And while now they seem like a positive group of people, back then, they were an Ouroboros of hate. I don't know how to say it. See, there was some critics who were okay, like Rebel Taxi, he talked about obscure topics and added his own input that made the commentary interesting. But then you have a Mr. Enter, somebody who ripped into everything modern that he dislikes and forcing his own stigma onto each and every review to the point where you feel like you're being yelled at as you watch these videos. You feel like Daddy05 is pranking you. Pranking in the biggest quotations ever. Pranking you and causing you to have a panic attack. You feel like you're getting doxxed as you watch the video. And while looking back on these videos, I don't know how any of them were meant to be taken seriously.
Showing something to the audience that you don't show to the people in the stories that should know better is cheating!
As a kid, your opinions get easily influenced by the people you look up to. And unfortunately, there were a lot of people who looked up to him, accepting critiques like, this animation looks like Flash. Assuming that Flash is an animation style and not a program. This looks like I'm on drugs. Okay, where are your morals? Assuming that television is supposed to give you life advice and not people in your actual life. And he wasn't the only one. Let's not even get started to when people started critiquing Steven Universe and saying that Steven bombs were a thing. Assuming that every single episode gets released as it's finished. And I don't mean to sound like an elitist or anything, but even back then, I didn't even care for this type of shit. I watched Clarence, and people would be like, oh my god, his voice is annoying, he doesn't sound like a kid, the show is trash. Meanwhile, I'm like, this is probably one of the only shows at the time it came out that actually gave parents and adults a personality. And people would be like, Uncle Grandpa, that thing is so wacky, it looks like I'm on drugs. Meanwhile, I'm just like, Uncle Grandpa, more like Gilfy Dilfy. And the thing is that most of these YouTubers be recommending shit like My Little Pony, and I'll just flat out admit that as a kid, I did not give a shit about those Technicolor manure spreading tramp stamp having donkeys. And don't even say I was a hater. I loved the hub. Wait a minute, not that hub. There we go. That hub. With all your favorite shows like Strawberry Shortcake and fucking Dan Versus. Oh my god, this image is so weird out of context. Transformers Prime and Pound Puppies fucking waterboarded MLP for all I cared. I love Pound Puppies. And if you do not love Pound Puppies, then I don't love you. Now, I have a little theory as to why these specific shows got hate, and I think it has to do with the fact that they're not really story focused, they're like episodic. Now, I know story-driven shows have been put through the ringer more than fucking Nate Diaz, but you gotta remember, during the time that most of these aired, cable was still like a thing. And imagine you were watching a show, right? You just found out that there was a new series that was airing today, and you want to give your first impressions on it. So you randomly find it on a random channel, don't ask me to give you a number, and then you see this episode that requires you to already have knowledge of the entire cast and story to actually enjoy. Wouldn't that leave you with like a terrible first impression? And while I know in today's society there's stuff like streaming services that give story-driven shows more leeway to do what they want because you can just watch whatever whenever, you've still got to realize that we're in America and other countries don't necessarily have accessibility to that, and a lot of funding for most of these programs are from those countries, so there's still some kind of need to have episodic content in your series. But you know, I'm glad how people in my generation are now talking about these shows because they're giving light to stuff that people originally never gave a second chance to. Now, hopefully, with these people talking about their actual experiences with the show and not stuff they heard from random YouTubers who shouldn't have been giving a platform, we'll be able to look at these discarded shows and realize how good they actually were.